Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where we work hard and play hard on our little corner of land in Iowa. My husband and I were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, or horse and buggy Mennonite, as some refer to them as. And although we are no longer part of that culture or community, we are intentional about passing on the old-fashioned skills of our childhood to the next generation. Hello friends, RUTHANN Zimmerman here for Homesteading with the Zimmermans, and in today's video I'm going to show you cheese potatoes. But not only cheese potatoes, I am going to share how to upsize this recipe to make a large 22-quart roaster full of cheese potatoes for weddings and funerals and large gatherings. Now, we call these wedding or funeral potatoes because it's so easy to make this recipe to fill multiple roasters. And when I shared that this is the recipe that we use for our daughter's wedding, I got lots of questions about how do you make 4 roasters full of cheese potatoes. So, needless to say, when you're making 3 and 4 roasters full of cheese potatoes to feed like 300 and 400 people, you're probably not going to make everything from scratch. So today I'm going to walk you through the ingredients that you would use when you're cooking for 200, 300, 400 people, or even just one roaster full. And one roaster will feed approximately 100 people if you have an 18-quart roaster. So I'm going to walk you through how I make the potatoes when I'm cooking for a crowd, but what you'll see me do is how I make them here at home for my family. So first of all, there's a difference between the modern roasters, and there's a fly in here. If that tells you anything about how warm our February has been, that right there should be proof that our February has been very warm. But anyway, rabbit trail. There's a difference between vintage or older models of roasters and crock pots and the modern models. So you may have seen in the past me using this vintage crock pot. And when I did a deep dive and started reading about the difference, why I cannot learn to love my new crock pot, I found this vintage one and I've never gone back. And the same with this roaster. This is a vintage Hamilton Beach roaster. So with the modern crock pots and roasters, any modern slow cooker, the USDA, maybe it's the FDA, one of those alphabet agencies, has regulated them where there's not a true low setting because they believe that food will grow bacteria when it's on a low setting for too long. So you will not, on a modern slow cooker or crock pot, even though it says low, you're gonna find that your stuff scorches. And if you're like me, there's a frustration there and you can't leave the house with something on low. I mean, you can put a roast in with plenty of water and you'll be okay. It'll just be cooked to smithereens by the time you come home. But like something like cheese potatoes, I used to try to put them on low and I'd always end up scorching them. But now I know it was because my modern crock pot didn't have a true low. Because of regulations, they took that out of the thermostat. They bring it up to whatever, I don't even know what degrees, but you can do your own research. But I have found it to be true. And the same with roasters at our church. So our church kitchen has a whole bunch of new roasters, and none of them have a true low. So you can't truly put something in a roaster and come back in a couple hours and stir it because they've taken that true low temperature out of the thermostat. When I want to make my cheese potatoes and I want to start them on low, I want them at barely 150 degrees. And all the ingredients that are in there are not going to grow bacteria in that time as they heat up to 150 degrees. I'm perfectly okay with that. Plus, on the back side of that, I at one time will be turning them up to like 250 degrees to get them thoroughly hot. I just want to start them low and slow to keep them from burning at the sides. So that is my little tidbit of information about modern day crock pots and slow cookers. In the description of this video, I'm going to put the recipe, and I'm going to put the different amounts of ingredients as you size up your recipe. So if you want to make a whole roaster full, I'm going to have all the ingredients for a whole roaster of cheese potatoes. But when I make cheese potatoes here at home, I will make baked potatoes and then I will cool them and shred them. When we make for the wedding, when you're cooking for 200 or 300 people, I always buy the frozen shredded hash browns. The other difference is when I make for large crowds of people, fundraisers, weddings, funerals, I will use a cream of chicken soup, and I will use store-bought sour cream, and I'll use store-bought shredded cheese. But when I make it here at home, I make my own cream soups, and I'll use our homemade raw shredded cheese. But in the description, in the video, in the description of this video, I will have both recipes. If you're making it for a crowd and using, store-bought tin can soup and sour cream, I'll have that all in the video for you. And today, because I have potatoes left over from when we cooked for the wedding, I will be using these frozen hash browns to make some cheese potatoes for our family. So because Mitchell and Hadassah have both have morning part-time jobs that take them out of the house in the morning before school, not all of our morning chores are getting done like they used to, because me and the 3 little boys now do all the homestead chores. And the little boy that used to put away clean dishes in the morning now washes dishes, and that leaves nobody to put clean dishes away except me. And if I don't put them away when I'm editing, it's gonna bother me that my dish rack was full of dishes. So before I start cooking, I am going to put all of those clean dishes away. So when you're making your large roaster full wedding potatoes, you will chop your onion up fine, and then this butter's left over from the wedding, and then you're gonna cut your butter up fine. You're going to take your shredded hash browns and your shredded cheese. You're going to take all of these ingredients and mix them together in your roaster, along with your cream of chicken soup and your sour cream. And as it cooks together, you are going to have the most delicious cheese potatoes. When I make them for a large crowd, I figure about 3 hours on low, and then another hour or so on medium to get your potatoes soft and get all the cheese melted thoroughly and the butter mixed in. So I'm not going to use this butter. For my family, I'm going to start by making my cream of chicken soup. And the first part of the recipe asks for 3 tablespoons of fat. You can use tallow, that's my tallow, or you can use butter. I'm going to use tallow today because we have dried off our 1 cow, our Jersey, so we're only milking our black and white cow, who's a Jersey Normandy cross. And she does not give as much cream. So I'm going to be saving my butter, and we have lots and lots of tallow. So today I am going to be using tallow to make my cream soup. I'm going to take all the onions that the recipe calls for and saute them in the tallow. I'm just gonna make the onions be part of my cream soup recipe. When your onions start browning a little bit, you're gonna add your flour, and that's 4 tablespoons of flour. And then you're gonna mix it around until there's no dry spots of flour left. And then you're gonna add 1/2 a cup of chicken broth. I am using water because I'm getting a little low on chicken broth. And also going to add 1/2 a cup of cream. You can use milk. Remove this from the heat, or I'm going to turn the burner off and keep stirring it. Don't forget to add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. Okay, now I'm ready to assemble my cheese potatoes. So this is a 5-pound bag of frozen hash browns. If you're making a family size recipe, you will need 2 pounds of either cooked shredded potatoes or 2 pounds of frozen shredded hash browns. So I need not quite half of this. I need 1 teaspoon of salt. I need 1 medium chopped onion and 1 can of cream of chicken soup. But I've got my onion in here, so this is my onion and my cream of chicken soup. So the other thing I need is 1 cup of sour cream, but for recipes that call for sour cream, I always use homemade plain Greek yogurt. So instead of store-bought sour cream for the family, I'm going to use a cup of Greek yogurt. But when we made them for the wedding, we did use store-bought sour cream. I went to Sam's Club, and guys, this is not an exact, things don't have to be exact for these cheese potatoes to be delicious. So I need a cup of sour cream. That looks like about a cup of sour cream. It's actually Greek yogurt. If anything, I hope that my recipes give you the confidence to try new ingredients in something, try switching out ingredients. I just added a little more water to my cream of onion chicken soup because I didn't like how thick it was. And I really hope that my recipes encourage you to do the same, to branch out and trust yourself and gain confidence. So the next thing I need is 1 cup of shredded cheese, and this is what we had left over from cooking for the wedding. But for the family, I am going to use up some of this Asiago cheese that has been in my refrigerator for a while. And it's kind of a dry Asiago, I think, because I stirred the curds too long. And like I've said before, I'm still experimenting and learning about cheese making. So the family has not really been eating it as a snack because it's kind of dry. So I'm just going to shred it up and use it up in these potatoes. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video on getting children involved in the kitchen, and I'll link that one for you. But one of the things that happens when kids get involved in the kitchen is I am missing some of my favorite kitchen gadgets. Take these little graters. I have 3 of them. I have a fine one and a medium one and a coarse one. And I've been missing the medium grater for quite a while. Like, it's been a couple months and it hasn't turned up. And I just can't quite figure out where a child may have put it. But it's not where it belongs. But I'm not going to worry about it today because I have plenty of time to make these cheese potatoes. So if I grate my cheese coarse, it's still going to have plenty of time to melt. So this is definitely a little more than a cup of cheese, but we're just gonna roll with it. So the last thing that we need to add is 1/2 cup of butter. So 1/2 cup is about 4 ounces, and I know about exactly how much 4 ounces is, and like I said, you're really not gonna make or break these cheese potatoes. And if you're making them in a large roaster for a large crowd of people, I usually cut my butter into about 1 tablespoon increments because that helps it melt faster. So now we've got our 1/2 cup of butter in there. So now all I have to do is put this on low, and the butter's gonna melt down through the potatoes and keep them from sticking. And stir it together the best that you can, but don't be making a whole mash out of everything. So I'm gonna try to work my butter to the bottom of this crock pot. So when you're making these potatoes for a large group of people, and you're making 1 or 2 or 3 roasters full, and you're buying your sour cream and your cream of chicken soup and your shredded cheese, it's very, very easy. It does not take long at all. We made potatoes in less than an hour for all the wedding guests and stirred it all together in our roasters. And then you can store your roasters full of potatoes in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 days, or you can freeze them and get them out. Of course, it'll take a lot longer if they're frozen, but for the wedding, we made them on Thursday morning and put them in coolers, and then we cooked them on Saturday morning and served them on Saturday for supper. So we started our roasters out at 150, and because they're modern roasters, we had somebody stay with them because what just happened? Well, this just happened. The weather's so nice outside that I have that window open, and I'm guessing it just wiggled its way out of the ceiling up there. So as I was saying, because we were using the church's more modern roasters that don't have a true low setting, we had somebody there stirring the potatoes occasionally at the reception center to keep them from burning, because I've used those roasters at fundraisers often enough to know that you can't walk away for a couple hours and come back like I can with this. I can set this on low, and I am going to head to the school now and help the drama department with the drama students, and I'll come back in a couple hours and it will be just the way I expected it to. They won't be scorched along the sides. Anyway, for the wedding, we had somebody at the reception center watching the roasters full of potatoes and the brisket. So the other thing that we served was brisket, and that we got catered. There's a Mennonite butcher shop in the community, and he prepared it all, put it in roasters, and then we just had to heat the brisket in his roasters. He knows his roasters well enough, so he had the instructions with his roasters. And then we also served green beans. We also served dinner rolls, which we ordered in from our local grocery store. And then we also served a salad. And what we did for the salad is we bought the lettuce, and then it's kind of hard to explain, but in the Mennonite community, when there's a wedding, bride's parents invite some of their friends to serve the meal. So we prepared it all, and then our friends, mine and Elvin's friends, who are still part of the Mennonite community, they went to the reception center on the day of the wedding, and they took care of all the roasters, and I had instructions for them. They poured all the green beans into roasters and heated them, and then before we served the green beans, we put some browned butter over them, which my mom made for me the day before. Anyway, and then the salad, they just put all the lettuce in a big bowl, and we added the cheese and the croutons, and then they tossed it with the dressing, and they served it. And I don't know that I have any photos of the cooks serving the meal at the reception, but if I do, I will try to share how that all went. But that is how we can feed 200 plus people at our family weddings. Number one, we're in the Mennonite community, so we have all the resources that they offer, and we're extremely thankful for that. And number two, you have recipes like this that are tried and true, because Mennonite mamas are making weddings. There's a lot of weddings in a Mennonite community. So one mama says to the other, hey, that recipe, the potatoes that you served at your daughter's wedding, can I have that recipe? And that is what you get. In fact, in modern day Mennonite cookbooks like this, they have an entire section for, let me see what this one's called, large quantity cooking. And there's things like baked corn, baked rice, barbecue sauce for chicken, 1, 2, 3 different kinds of cheesy potatoes, cheese spread for sandwiches, there's puddings, there's dinner rolls, there's iced coffee, there's a golden ember sauce for chicken. I mean, there's just a lot of recipes that will feed 200 and 300 people, and this is the resource that they use for their weddings and funerals and family reunions. And I know that I will get questions on where can I find these Mennonite cookbooks. You probably have to go to a Mennonite store. A lot of these are not online, but I'll do a little research and see if I can find a Mennonite bookstore that might have some Mennonite cookbooks. Normally what happens is each community puts out their own cookbook. So this is one of my favorites, and this is from Elvin's family community. So it's from the community where Elvin grew up. So it's been 3 hours. I am back from helping out at school, and we are gonna check on the potatoes. So these potatoes have been on low, and here you can see, that I'm just gonna keep them on low because they're ready. I've tasted them, and we're just gonna keep them on low. Okay, a couple things to note. When you fill your roasters, especially if you're using the shredded frozen hash browns, your roasters are gonna be heaping full. But as those hash browns defrost and cook down, they're gonna shrink a lot. So don't get too concerned if your roaster is heaping full and you don't think it's all gonna stay inside. As you can tell, it shrinks down to almost half. If you are using, baked potatoes that you shredded, you're not gonna lose as much volume as you do if you're using the frozen shredded hash browns. So this is gonna be for our supper. It's now 3 o'clock, and I'm going to just leave these on low, and I'm gonna hustle and make some chicken and green beans to go with our cheese potatoes. So I changed my mind and decided to go with some sausage, and this is called a Pennsylvania style sausage that our Mennonite butcher makes for us. And basically the ingredients are salt and pepper. I'm sure there's a couple other things in there too, but it's not your strong like bratwurst type of sausage. So I'm gonna defrost these, and then I'll probably throw them into the Instapot to cook them, and then I'll throw them into the pan and fry them up with a little bit of tallow.